new Galaxy. While Samsung's flagship lineup has gained some exciting improvements in recent years, this generation feels more like a subtle update. I'm not going to fault Samsung for that though. It's no easy feat trying to come up with groundbreaking changes every year, and sometimes it's the small improvements that count. But with the Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus, none of the new features are must-haves. In fact, this generally feels like a skippable year for those looking to upgrade from an S8. All told though, the Galaxy S flagships are still among the best Android phones around. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dive into what's new. This year's updates are mostly about cameras and apply to both new flagships. The S9 and S9 Plus are by and large the same phone, barring size, memory, and the fact that the Plus has 2 rear cameras while the regular S9 just has 1. The S9 Plus is also the first of the Galaxy S series to sport a pair of cameras on its back, adding features like live focus and dual capture. The setup here is basically the same as on the Note 8, with a wide-angle primary lens and a telephoto partner for close-ups. The regular S9 doesn't have this hardware, but it can still add artificial depth of field to your shots via Samsung's selective focus software, which isn't a shabby alternative. The difference between portraits shot with the two isn't so big that you'll feel the need to shell out for the Plus. Really, you're just missing the dual capture tool and the ability to frame your shots more tightly with the telephoto lens. The most interesting of Samsung's new camera features is dual aperture, which is available on both S9s and supposedly mimics the way the human eye works. When you're in a dark environment, the lens can jump to a wide aperture of f1.5 to let in more light, just like our irises do. If the scene is bright enough, the camera defaults to f2.4. In Pro mode, you can choose when to use which of the 2 levels, but you can't pick f-stops in between. For those who like shooting on auto and letting the phone do the thinking, this means you can effectively get brighter shots at night or in dark locations. You'll sometimes find details blown out at f1.5, but in general the larger aperture is good at letting you capture what otherwise might have been a dim, noisy mess. This new, wider aperture is now the largest available on a smartphone, and will be a welcome touch for those who want to fine-tune settings like ISO and shutter speed for even exposure. Being able to go to f1.5 gives you about 2 more f-stops to play with than f2.4, meaning you can then dial down things like ISO or exposure compensation for less noisy pictures that are just as bright. Those who have the skill or patience to tweak those settings should consider shooting primarily in Pro mode. Samsung added dedicated RAM to the S9's sensors to process multi-frame noise reduction more quickly. And in general, this works as promised. I easily fired shot after shot in the dark, and the S9 Plus never slowed down unless I was testing its ability to keep up by hitting the button non-stop like a deranged shutterbug. The pictures also turned out relatively clear. There are barely any color specks, although details like building edges are often muddy. You only really notice those artifacts when you zoom up close, which people don't often do. Because of these small blemishes though, pictures from the Pixel 2 and iPhone X generally appear more crisp than the S9s. Something that the S9s do that the Pixels and iPhone can't do yet is shoot super slow-mo at 960 frames per second. For the most part, people don't need such a high frame rate. The 240 FPS on the previous generation is perfectly adequate for your scampering pets or skateboarding tricks. And as fun as the 960 FPS clips are, trying to record them requires some finesse. You can use auto mode, which switches to slow-mo when it detects motion in a square within your shot. This means you'll have to aim your phone at a spot where you expect something to happen. Something that's better for orchestrated setups like throwing peanut M&Ms into a friend's mouth or popping a firecracker. But for unpredictable subjects, this method is less likely to be successful. You can also try manually triggering slow-mo capture, which lets you press a button to capture a burst of 0.2 seconds in extreme slow-mo during an ongoing recording. You're limited to up to 6 bursts per recording in order to avoid amassing huge files. This method is slightly easier to control, but it still requires you to predict when something worth slowing down is going to happen. I had the same complaint when Sony introduced this exact same feature in the Xperia XZ Premium last year. But it seems like neither company has been able to find an easier, more meaningful way to record video at such a high frame rate yet. Which begs the question, is this feature really necessary? Probably not. But still, it's there in the S9 and S9 Plus if you want to get exaggerated videos. On the whole, the new additions to the S9's cameras don't give the new flagships a significant edge over the competition, nor their predecessors. Aside from situations with barely any light, there's no real reason to pick a phone with an f1.5 aperture. All that said, the Galaxy S9s both take lovely pictures and smooth video in daylight and even indoors. I love how bright and colorful my photos turned out, and I have a hard time picking between shots taken on my Galaxy S9 and my Pixel 2. The new camera features may not be groundbreaking, but they don't take away from an already solid formula that's won the S series so much acclaim over the years. A more polarizing feature debuting in the S9s is AR emoji, or augmented reality emojis. You've probably seen these online by now, animated talking heads that vaguely resemble people you know. Some people find them creepy, others find them fun. So far, I'm ambivalent, although I'm leaning towards the latter. I like how easy it is to create an avatar that resembles me. Just snap a photo of you facing forward, and the phone generates a digital version of you that you can tweak with hairstyles, skin tone, and outfits. But after testing it on a bunch of my colleagues, it's clear Samsung's software isn't always good at replicating faces. Some people look uncannily like their avatars. Others look nothing like themselves. With some styling though, you can usually get pretty close. After you're satisfied with your image, save the emoji, and the S9 generates a set of animated reaction GIFs featuring your avatar. Conveniently, you can insert these in any chat app that supports a GIF, whether it's Messages, Messenger, or WhatsApp. These are cute to send and receive at first and feel more personal than regular emoji. But over time, I got used to seeing the same few expressions from my peers, and the novelty wore off. To mix things up, you can send a video of you talking through your emoji, much like Apple's Animoji. Instead of mapping your expressions onto a generic graphic, like a robot or a turd, Samsung lets your emoji do the talking. This would be a fun feature, except that S9 struggles to pick up facial movements. When I smiled into the front camera, my emoji cringed. When I tried to wink, my emoji suddenly developed an odd lazy eye and squinted like a belligerent drunk. Which, to be fair, is not very different from what I look like when I'm trying to wink. This is the crux of why AR emojis seem creepy. Your expressions tend to be more hilarious and wonky than accurate, and generally fail at conveying any emotion you're actually trying to send. Until Samsung can make this more accurate or commit to consistently adding more expressions to the auto-generated set, AR emojis will remain a novelty. And even after it does that, this won't be a feature that wins over users. In my week so far with the phone, I've barely sent any to my friends, other than to show off the fact that I have them. Moving on to the next bit of improvements in the S9s, Bixby. Again, most of the changes revolve around the camera. The updates here are specific to Bixby Vision, which is the AR component of Samsung's digital assistant. Vision is now better integrated into the camera. Just tap a button on the viewfinder to bring up Bixby, and you'll find a row of little icons at the bottom to switch modes. 3 new modes have been added: Live Translate, Food, and Makeup. The first uses Google Translate software to interpret foreign languages and overlay them onto what you're pointing your phone at in real life. This came in handy when we were in Barcelona. The S9 helped me make sense of menus and warning labels, although this was reliant on the phone having a working internet connection and was about as accurate as Google Translate. That is, generally helpful, but sometimes doesn't make sense.
You're done.
What?
Is that correct?
No, I said hi.
Meanwhile, Food mode will identify the dishes you point your S9 at and provide a calorie estimate. This is a useful idea in theory, but most of the time Bixby failed to recognize the delicious meals I was about to dig into. It couldn't even identify a basic bowl of instant ramen, not to mention offer a reliable calorie estimate. Finally, there's Makeup mode, which has limited appeal. I don't think many of you are going to be trying this out on a regular basis, but for those of us who are more cosmetics inclined, this has the potential to be a useful tool. It'll overlay lipsticks, blushes, eyeshadows, and eyebrows on your face in real time, and you can click through to buy or learn more about a product you like. Sounds nifty, except it's just not comprehensive enough just yet. Makeup aficionados like myself probably already use apps like YouCam Makeup or Me2 to see what colors we like, and those offer far more options than Bixby does right now. Long story short, the Bixby updates are nice because you can conveniently access them from the camera. But you can also install third-party apps to get the same results, or sometimes better. They're not exactly worth going out and buying a new phone for right now. So far, we've gone over the most notable of the little changes Samsung made to the S series, and we're still not done. One more update, which once again has to do with the camera, is a refined biometric login method. Samsung noted that its existing iris scan works well in low light but struggles when it's bright out. To make it easier to unlock your phone with your face, regardless of your surroundings, the S9s offer what the company calls Intelligent Scan, a hybrid of iris authentication and camera-based facial recognition. When you're trying to get into your phone, Intelligent Scan will first try to identify your eyes. If that fails, it will look for your face. It was nice seeing this at work. The lock screen displays symbols to show what the phone is looking for, so you can shift around to accommodate the system if you wish. In general, this worked very quickly, and I usually got into my S9 with little trouble. Alright, we're almost done with all the ways the S9 has been tweaked. At least we're finally moving away from camera changes. The S9 has stereo speakers, one firing down from the bottom edge and one forward from the screen. This boosts the S9's volume, making it easier to hear what people are saying in your videos and games. I appreciated the louder sound when I was trying to show my friends some funny YouTube videos in a crowded restaurant. Samsung also tidied up the phone's face, masking the array of sensors above the screen and trimming the bezels. These changes are subtle, and you wouldn't notice them unless you went looking for the differences. Something else you won't catch until you're actually using the phone is the new Snapdragon 845 processor under the hood. Oh, and the fingerprint sensor on the back now sits comfortably within reach below the camera instead of right up next to it. Like previous Galaxy S flagships, the S9 handles multitasking well. The new chipset is also supposed to squeeze about 30% more battery than the 835, and given the S9 has the same size batteries as the S8, this should provide longer runtimes. My S9 Plus generally lasts a day and a half before throwing up a low battery alert, which isn't significantly longer than its predecessor. Still, extra juice is nice. I had hoped that after exhaustively going over all the ways the S9 is new, I'd find the updates here to be more significant. But I'm still struggling to find a reason to recommend upgrading to the S9 from an S8. The new camera features aren't must-haves unless you plan on shooting in pitch black a lot, and you can basically get all the new Bixby stuff by installing third-party apps. Plus, Samsung will most likely eventually roll out those updates over a software patch. But even though these changes feel incremental, the S9s are still strong flagships in their own right. If you're looking to upgrade from an older Android phone, these are worth considering thanks to speedy performance, capable cameras, and long-lasting batteries. As the first major flagships launched in 2018, the S9s are decent, although Samsung may have to try harder at inventing meaningful new features before the year is up if it wants to keep up with its competitors.